When it comes to your candidate database, does size really matter? I know that line is totally cheesy and cliche, but I still think it's an important question. You see, there's tons of companies out there that are still recruiting under a false narrative of we need to build a huge database of candidates so that when we do have an open job, we can immediately start marketing to them. Here's the problem. Those same companies have all this candidate data locked up inside their ATS and CRM, but the search, sort, stack ranking, and especially the marketing capabilities of those platforms have fallen woefully behind the times. So your big repository of resumes ends up being a huge bottleneck and potentially a liability. We're going to be talking about how to extract the data that's being locked up so you can get the highest ROI out of the candidates you already have. And we're going to be starting right now. On the Speaker Agenda show today, I have with me someone that's cut his teeth in RPO and also retained search world, as well as spent some time on the corporate talent acquisition side of the house. Today, he's a VP of Customer Experience at HiringSolved, where he's helping clients leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence so they can save time identifying and engaging top candidates in the marketplace. Oh, and he's also a fellow poodle lover. Welcome back to the Speaker Agenda show. Please welcome my guest, Jeremy Roberts from HiringSolved.
Great to
Jeremy?
connect with you. How's it going?
Fantastic, man. I know we keep on bumping into each other on Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere else. So absolute pleasure to have you on the show today.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yep. So I know that you are absolutely addicted about having these types of conversations, just like I am.
Yep.
Anything about recruiting, recruitment marketing, sourcing, that's where I cut my teeth. That's probably where you cut your teeth as well. But I've got some hard-hitting questions for you today, so stick with me, all right?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So the first question is, what's the single most important thing that companies or recruiting firms can do to increase recruiter efficiency?
Wow, increased recruiter efficiency. That's do I have a word limit on this?
No.
Oh, okay. So for
Just us
me,
talking, man. Nobody
yeah,
else.
for me right now, it's really recruiter efficiency is about seeing the right people at the right time. So it's looking at your processes and trying to eliminate the need to review everything. I mean, with all the compliance protocols and then kind of lagging search interfaces that I see, it's really what the problem we're typically looking at on recruiter efficiency is. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of problems at different stages, but on the sourcing phase, it's seeing the right people at the right time.
So lagging user interfaces, are you referring to job boards, applicant tracking systems, CRMs, all three? What are you referring to?
All of the above, right? Like I think when we use a lot of those systems, they're typically not built for search. They're built for compliance or for marketing, or and they're not really created to efficiently search. So you'll see a lot of false positives. Instead of seeing the 30 right candidates, you'll see 100, and that'll be exciting. But then you have to look through 70 that you shouldn't have even had to look at. So.
Well, recruiters have always had this funny thing about not trusting technology
Yeah,
to
more is
show them
better.
the right candidates at the right time, right? And rightfully so. I mean, Boolean
Yeah.
search has kind of grown up, and the search engines have gotten a lot better. The stack ranking has gotten a lot better. But when you're using archaic information like a resume and a job description, which are typically both horribly written, they're written in different grammar and things like that. So it complexifies the issue a little bit, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. No, and I do think the recruiter trust, it's hard to launch new software today because you launch software that's kind of cutting edge, and we're giving it to people who have been using certain processes for 15 years. So,
Yeah.
You're trying to move things forward with people who are, accustomed to certain processes, and you have to prove yourself to them.
Yeah,
We
I've
do a
been
lot of.
having this conversation for 15 years with recruiters, and trying to change their perception that post search and pray is certainly a way, but it's not the only way, and you need more tools in your toolbox. But I think that you've got social media, you've got all these sourcing tools, you've got now video is coming on the horizon. Where should they be kind of focusing their skills or lasering in on their skills, if you will?
Well, so I did a presentation at SourceCon a few years ago that still rings true, and it was called "How to Survive the Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence Disruption."
Hmm.
And what I talked about there was that as you add automation to every step of the process, whether it's a chat bot on the front end, or search algorithms in the middle, or the onboarding, whatever it may be, all of the automation tools, once added, what they do is they take away the monotonous tasks that recruiters shouldn't have to do, and they leave room for all the things that you and I learned at search firms in the 1990s, before
Right.
all of this technology flooded what we do. So what becomes important is client management, candidate management, what we used to call massaging both sides of the deal to make it work, prepping candidates for interviews, prepping hiring managers for interviews, the debrief, all the things that increase your likelihood to close and find and select the right person. All of those places where we've had to provide less of a service to our hiring managers, less of a service to the candidates we're interviewing. All of those, we're going to have more time for all of that. So the soft
Do you,
skills,
do you think
the
the recruiters coming into the industry today are, soft skills are notoriously difficult to train on. Um, so do you think the recruiters are being, taught those kind of soft skills?
no, 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 not at all. I think in good, I mean, people are, everybody has a different mentor, everybody has a different training program. But what I
Right.
see lately is recruiters are hired and then they're taught a process and they're taught the technology. So you're taught
Right.
how to open a job in the ATS. By the way, you need to interview them. And then the interviews you hear are, do you have experience with this? Do you have experience with this?
Right.
Whereas,
The checkbox, right?
yeah, they're checking
3 years this, 5
boxes.
years that, 2 years this. Okay, you're qualified. Boom, send them on.
Yeah, so they're learning processes and they're being trained by technology companies how to use the technology, not how to recruit. I train
Right.
people how to use our technology all the time, and what I see oftentimes is a lack of recruiter training. So then I'll pivot into how to write a better email, how to do an interview to uncover the hidden motivations. You know, when you're doing an interview, you should find out if they meet the criteria for the job, but you should also be finding out all the things that are going to help you close the deal at the end of the
Right.
process.
The why. Why
Yeah,
would you want to be looking at a new
yeah.
opportunity at this time?
So I think there's a huge gap in that training right now, because when people get hired, you get trained by the ATS people how to use the ATS. You get trained by the professional network how to use the professional network, and it goes from there. So I've had one of the things that I got asked recently. They were like, does your software allow us to create a list of candidates and then show it to the hiring manager before we start the search? And I was like, no. And why do you want to do that? And it's like, well, this other tool does that, and everybody knows what tool I'm talking about. But to me, as kind of an old school, I grew up in executive search. By doing that, you're admitting that they know more than you, and you're giving control to your hiring manager before you even start the search. You're saying, here are 100 candidates. Am I on the right path? Before you even know if any of those candidates want to talk to you. And so
I
you're
wonder if
giving
that
up
has
you're
to,
giving up all control, and you're
yeah.
letting them run things from the very beginning, and you're becoming submissive and transactional before you even start.
I wonder if that has something to do with the hiring managers are not being kept informed of what's happening in the recruiting process. So they don't know what's going on behind the curtain, right? They
Mhm.
just see these 3 candidates and 3 qualified, interested, available candidates. They're ready to be set up for interviews, but they didn't see the 100 candidates that applied to the job, or the 30 to 50 candidates that the recruiter spoke to get to the 3 candidates that were qualified, interested, and available and ready to go, right? So I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency if that's happening in the.
Yeah, maybe that's how people are using it. I would hope that's what they're doing. Hey, this is what I'm starting with,
Right.
but I don't, I don't know. I feel like it's become more transactional, and we're not. We should be using technology to be seen as the experts, not to be seen as the submissive partner who is going to just do everything you say to do.
I think that a lot of recruiters are going to be at risk for being marginalized as AI becomes more and more prevalent in the recruiting process. There are fewer and fewer opportunities from the tactical perspective to be viewed as a subject matter expert. 10 years ago, you had recruiters that were absolutely known for, that is the Boolean search god, go or goddess, go get him and he'll or her, and they'll go find you a good candidate on the internet, right? Or this person is really good at doing email campaigns. This person's really good at, searching the database, whatever. And because AI is going to be taking over a lot of those tactical things, you have to be better at, hey, this person's really good at closing candidates. This person's really good at interviewing hiring managers and getting the correct details from the intake meeting that are going to be relevant to looking for the candidates. So I think those are the skills that really we need to be focusing on, more engagement as opposed to candidate sourcing. Let those tactical things be done by automation and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you see any technology changes on the horizon that are going to be fundamentally changing how recruiters engage or interact with candidates in the future? There's already been a ton of change. Social media for one of them, SMS, text messaging, chatbots, everything else. Any other technologies?
I think what's in HR tech in general, I feel like more so, I feel like the pieces of technology are there. You've got the chatbots, you got the video interviewing, you've got the search algorithms, but we're still too fragmented, and
putting together a tech stack in this environment is a nightmare.
we're still too fragmented, and I think right now you've got some companies that have gotten really good at implementing a piece of it or another. As far as the tech companies, very few can be end to end yet. In terms of, so what I see in HR tech right now, we're still completely dependent upon integrations, but not all the integration partners are excited about that. So
I know that a lot of ATSs and CRMs have locked down their databases and they don't want to integrate, right? Because in the future we may want to add our own chatbot, or we may want to add our own, search algorithm.
You see that a lot where people are kind of selling the roadmap, as opposed to doing what Salesforce did and becoming a place, fundamentally built upon integrations, right?
Well, they've got the APIs and the platform to build it, right?
So I hope that the HR tech space gets a little bit better about partnering and integrating as tech vendors, so.
Do you think that companies are using that? I know ATSs have done this, but do you think companies have used their recruiting or application process as a differentiator in the marketplace? I've never seen this actually done, but hey, it's so easy to apply here. It's don't apply there, apply here because it's easier.
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of people, if you go apply for some jobs, like a federal government contractor, for example, typically there's so many steps to the apply process that and so then you've got kind of the new breed of ATS that's one click apply, which, both have their problems. You've got a huge drop off rate with the long process, but then the quick apply, 2 years in, you've got 300,000 resumes with no structure because the ATSs have failed to provide good structure without collecting it on the front end. They have failed at giving the database structure on the back end. So, from the candidate's perspective, the quick apply is the easiest. From the recruiter perspective at the end, if that company doesn't do a great job of structuring that data and organizing it, once it's there, then you've got an unsearchable database 1 to 2 years in. And so I've
That's
seen
one thing
both
I
extremes.
loved about Google for Jobs coming on board, because they really standardized or penalized those that did not standardize their job descriptions. Now I'm hoping that somebody can actually do that on the resume side or candidate profile side. I mean, F name is a first name. We all get that. L name is a last name, right? But standardizing that across every ATS, every CRM, every tool will make a huge difference in being able to just share that candidate information across ATS, CRMs, job boards, just within your own ecosystem, right?
You're right.
So, do you see any other advancements that are on the horizon here?
No, I mean, I think I think the pieces are there. It's about who can tie them all together in their own tech stack the fastest, and
Right.
And from a corporate perspective, who can either figure out the integrations piece and becoming a marketplace and a community, or who develops it all end to end first. I don't think anybody's going to be able. They'll have to do it through acquisition, because it takes too long to develop a lot of these things. But there is no obvious front runner right now.
So you and I spoke. We had on a little pre-call there. We had an interesting conversation about user adoption of tools and technology, and that even though we're giving recruiters a lot more access to tools and technology, which is going to make their jobs easier, there is still really low adoption and really low utilization rates across the recruiter people using these tools. So
yeah.
Why do you think that? I mean, it drives me crazy, because I rolled out a video solution, right, when I was at Monster. Very little utilization, and they were seeing benefit out of it. Why is that? Why are recruiters so damn lazy?
No, I don't think it's the recruiter. I think with adoption, you have to, it comes down to trust, first off. I think they have to trust the system. They have to see the ROI. It's one of those where their current processes are so broken and so laborious that when I talk to people about user adoption issues, it's tool fatigue. They have too many places they're logging in. And so you can create a solution that works really well, but the reality is, if the underlying process is still broken, they don't have time to leverage it.
Right.
It's
like if I buy a Lamborghini, I put it in my garage and never fix the flat tire or put gas in it, what good is a Lamborghini, right?
Yeah. So I was, when I left third party and went into corporate recruiting, I had been with Korn Ferry for a while, and I was a hunter, and I was kind of the internet recruiter. I was really good with databases, and I was really good at kind of rusing and gathering information and doing phone sourcing, all those different things, right? So I was really good at all those things. And so this corporation told me, we don't have recruiters who do that. So you would be amazing here. We're going to bring you over and make you a recruiter, and that'll kind of turbocharge the group, because you'll be able to teach them a lot of things. And so I got there. About 6 months in, I went to the leadership team and I told them, I was like, you know what, your recruiters are not bad. It's that they don't have time. Like, you've given me their job, and now everything you hired me for, I don't have any time to do that, because of the processes that you're using. So, their recruiters were good, and a lot of them didn't know how to do what I was doing, but I could show them and they could do it. It was, the underlying process was
capability of learning. I mean,
there were so many. No, there were so many open requisitions, so many applicants,
Yeah.
so much compliance work to do that at the end of the day, you had about 30 minutes to do what they hired me to do. So
Right.
in that situation, we couldn't, it was a bigger deal to fix the entire process. So what I did is I went from, 30 recs down to about 5, and they let me focus on the hardest to fill things and to make room for what I was good at. And it's the same thing with tool adoption. I mean, you can provide an amazing tool, but if the underlying requirements of the job take 40 hours a week just to process applicant flow and do all the things compliance is telling you to do, it doesn't matter how good the tools are, they're not going to adopt it. So,
Yeah. What I found is, like, if you're trying to replace an existing process or tool with a new one, now you don't want to lose whatever funnel or pipeline that original tool is creating, right? Because it does have some adoption. It may not have deep adoption, but it is probably being used by 2 or 3 super users. And then you try and implement a new tool, and there's that overlap, right? It's either a complete shut off of the old tool and go zoom ahead, but then there's that struggle, that 3-month
yeah.
pain point where companies are like, what happened to our candidate funnel? Well, you shut off the old tool to turn on the new tool. And it's
Yeah.
going to take a while to build up that new tool, right? It's not like it's not a faucet.
No, and I think you've also, as a technology company, you've got to figure out ways to free up their time
Yeah.
to even use, and it has to be so obvious to them what you've done for them that the adoption just happens,
So what kind of activities are recruiters doing where you can take that off of their plate, not add headcount, and
Yeah.
still have them, being productive? I mean, how do
Well,
you think a recruiter can go
I
from
was,
30 recs down to 20 recs?
well, so what you just did, I've been trying not to talk about my product. I spent most
Yeah.
of my career not as a vendor, so I've been trying not to talk about product, but you're getting specific, and all I can talk about is my product because I've been doing it for 3 years. So
Okay. I led you down the
full
path.
full disclosure, you took me there.
Yes.
But so for us, we used to just sell data, right? And so when you're selling data, you've got your client has an ATS, you've got your CRM, you've got access to LinkedIn and Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, and then you're selling an additional layer of data on top of that. So when you're talking about adoption in that environment, you're hoping that they put you in front of those other third-party sources of data and use your tool. But regardless, at the end of the day, they're tracking their metrics in the ATS and the CRM. And so they're going to spend the majority of their day there. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to go see if this company has any candidates for me.
Right.
And so that was the extent of the adoption you could get. So all of our algorithms that were managing our 500 million candidates can be applied to an ATS or CRM. So our clients started asking, hey, we like how fast this is. We like the matching capabilities of
Well,
we
let me
put
back
in a
up here.
job description. Well, hold on. Let me answer your question. Go
Well,
ahead.
for people that don't know, though, HiringSolved basically did social. It was a social aggregation
Yeah.
tool to start off
Yeah.
with.
We
They were
started as a,
aggregating hundreds of millions of social profiles and putting it into a really slick user interface so that you could see all their Twitter feed and their Facebook and their LinkedIn and maybe not LinkedIn, but their GitHub stuff all
due
in
to the
one
terms of
place.
our legal settlement, I cannot confirm or deny or
Right.
discuss the presence of LinkedIn data.
There you go.
So yes, we sold these profiles, and
Right.
we had 500 million profiles we were selling, and so we had a really fast search interface. We had a feature where you could upload a job description, and it would show you the best candidates for that job. And then, kind of like Pandora and Spotify, you could say yes or no and train the algorithm what you like for that job. And then
So
we had,
candidate search and match.
yeah,
Right.
and then we had matching against a candidate. So like if you
Okay.
have an ideal candidate, you could put that resume in and it would show you more people like that. So basically when you're talking about user adoption and you're selling third-party data, you're at the end of the day, they're like, I don't have enough candidates. Let me go see if I can find one at HiringSolved or Monster, or whatever it may be. So where we've gone now is we're using those same algorithms that we used on our data on enterprise data. And so
Gotcha.
what we're able to do, so say you have 400 people who had applied to a job, a recruiter would have to look through those 400 people to find the best ones. They would either look at all 400 or they would use some weird data management technique. I'm going to look at every fifth candidate, whatever it may be. Regardless, you're either looking through everyone or you're missing good people.
Right.
So
hence the 3 to 5 seconds per resume.
Exactly. And so what we've done now is we've taken our algorithms that we used on our data and put them on the ATS data. So now we can sort, like if you've got 400 applies, you can say, show me everybody with 4 or 5 stars based on how well they match the requirements of the job. And they could take a list of 400 down to 15 and look at all 15 and spend their time, instead of looking at all these profiles, spend their time with the 15 4 and 5 star rated candidates and then disposition the rest. Right. So
that saves a recruiter so much time. It's ridiculous.
Right. So we could either fight the adoption game and try to get them to look at us at the end of the day for a new candidate, or we could help them with a problem that was keeping them from being able to do more valuable tasks.
Right. But you're building that on top of their ATS and CRM as opposed to just doing open web social media search, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see recruiters don't make is they automatically think that, we don't have anybody in our database. I'm just going to automatically post this on a job board. I'm going to search the job board. I'm going to search the internet, search LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You might have 5 or 10 or 15 candidates that are perfectly qualified, interested, and available in your database already. You just don't know it and you don't know how to access it.
And if you're good at the soft skills, you only need 3.
Right.
I mean, that's
especially if they've already applied. They're a warm candidate at that point.
So yeah, the candidates in your ATS, they've given you an email address, they've given you a mobile number, and they've expressed interest before, right? So it's a much easier engagement process than, an open web candidate or even a job board candidate. So
do you see that there's some kind of steel curtain that companies have put up to protect the hiring managers, protect the recruiters from communication with the candidates? They don't want the recruiters being inundated, right?
I don't know. I hear this secondhand now. I haven't recruited myself in 6 years. So I spent three years at SourceCon and then 3.5 here. So probably not the best person to say that. I do know it is a lot. Engaging candidates is much different now. There is a lot more protection. Yes.
So what I see is, and even though I haven't recruited in many years, I still talk to recruiters all the time, right? And I ask them, hey, what's your process? If I were to give you a list of 100 candidates, had their first name, last name, email address, phone number, and maybe a phone number, what would you do with that? 99% of them say, I would look them up on LinkedIn. I would look them, see if I can't find their resume on one of the job boards, and I would email them or in-mail them. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they're really concerned about offending them by calling them.
Some are. I mean, most are.
The ones who aren't
typically, they don't care. They just ground them.
No, the staffing firms don't care. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot more of that going on, and I'm fascinated by it, and I do think I watch, younger recruiters interact with candidate pools, and I'm amazed, but their initial go-to reaction is very different than it was for us 10 years ago. Their first outreach is always different now than we used to do. So yeah, there's a lot more emails. Texting is huge. I do know a lot of people who are, using text messaging and doing well with that. I still feel like if you can get them on the phone, that's really powerful. Yeah. So, and it's.
How do you get them to pick up the phone, right? Voicemail is so prevalent here in the United States. And especially if you have a cell phone number, they know who's calling. It's right to voicemail. So how do you break that voicemail barrier?
Yeah, and I think that's where the text messaging comes in. Is people are getting through, and then once there's value, getting that phone call. Something I used to do, and this may be a few years outdated, but I always created a Google Voice number in every area code that I was recruiting in.
Nice.
And it's funny, like right now, if somebody calls me, because no one calls me from a 940 area code, that is the area code where my kids go to school.
Okay.
And so an unknown number from a 940 area code, I will always answer
Right.
because my kids are in school in a 940 area code. And so setting up a phone number and dialing from Google or any other system with a local number always increased my success.
It's an interesting hack. I just turned to video. So I had a natural affinity to
Yeah.
video. I was a photography major in college. So I just recorded, hey, my name's Jeff. I'm a recruiter with so-and-so. I've got a position for, click the form and fill it out. I'll be
Right.
back in contact with you, schedule time on my calendar, whatever. It was just easier to build that rapport over video for me than,
Mm-hmm.
but I like that, the phone number hack. How many phone numbers were you having?
Well, yeah,
That's
when I did it last, I only recruited in 3 cities.
okay.
So,
That could
so
be a
yeah,
little bit of a nightmare to maintain.
yeah, no, I did. I had several Google Voice numbers, but
Yeah,
you dial from the computer. Yeah, it is. It's funny, and you just forward them all wherever you want. So when they
right.
call you back, right? But um, I haven't done that in a while. I don't know
Do
if
you
there's
miss
any
it?
technical barriers there. Um, I love recruiting, and I love what we do as a profession. When you ask if I miss it, I'm proud that I did it, and I would do it again. But right now, I'm challenged enough with what's in front of me.
Yeah.
Um, that I don't necessarily want to do it right now,
Right.
but I
I'd
would
love to get
be.
back to recruiting. It's just I see that there's bigger problems than placing a single candidate or a handful of candidates at a single company. I have bigger problems that I want to solve within the recruiting industry. Like how do you resolve this engagement issue? Like how do we get
Yeah,
AI and other tools adopted in the industry? How do we get video? Things like that. Those are more interesting problems to solve. Still in alignment with talent acquisition as a whole, but those are just more interesting problems for me
yeah. For me,
personally.
I will do it again. I will do it
Yeah,
again before I retire.
yeah.
I will do it again.
You think so, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, I know I will. I know I will. So,
All right.
at some point, I don't know. I don't know when that would be. I know I can
Maybe
make a good living
2030
doing
when
it.
the next big depression hits.
Right. I know I can make a good living doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to pivot back and do it again.
All right. So we're almost out of time here. Backed by popular demand, we've got the segment of the show that we like to call Nope and Yup. So I'm going to rapid fire a bunch of questions to Jeremy here, and he's only allowed to answer with a nope, which is obviously a no, or a yup, which is obviously a yes. And we will allow him to elaborate, but only in the after hour show. So if you're interested in hearing more about how he answers the full question, you can listen to the after hours show, which we will record right after this. So first question, you ready?
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Go
All
ahead.
right. Nope and yup. That's all you're allowed to know.
Okay.
No other elaboration there. The most underutilized resource of a candidate's resume is company's own resume database.
Yep.
All right. GDPR and other privacy laws do absolutely nothing to safeguard user information.
Nope.
GDPR and other privacy laws are worthwhile.
Man. Am I thinking as a consumer
Nope,
or
nope, nope, or yup.
yep. Yep.
Okay. The phone is still
Wait,
the best.
repeat the question. Repeat the question.
GDPR is worthwhile.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The phone is still the best way for recruiters to reach out to candidates.
Yep.
There is plenty of data in a resume and a job description so that AI should be able to give you a 100% match.
Nope.
Yeah. That was a softball. New recruiters today are missing a specific critical skill set.
Yep.
And resume redaction is a viable way to overcome unconscious recruiter bias.
Yep.
You think so, huh?
Are you wanting me to talk more?
No, we'll talk about that in the after hours.
I think it works. I don't know. I don't know if it will solve the problems that people want. So
Yeah.
well, yeah, let's talk
I
about it in
think
the
it
after
creates
hours.
additional problems. All it does is kick the can down the road, but we'll talk about that in the after hour show. Jeremy Roberts from HiringSolved, thank you so much for being on the show. Absolutely appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're awesome, man. Great